Let's talk about very many things. Let's talk about ethical leadership. Let's talk about activism. So when it's art, we say artivism. Music is art. So artivism as well in music. And maybe we could use it as some music somewhere. Dr. Reuben Kigame is our guest for this hour. Dr. Kigame is recently given a doctor title. Good morning, Daktari. How are you? Good. Very well, thank you.
Yeah.
Karibu sana.
These two ladies keep you alive.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, keep the conversations going.
Yeah.
We have them one conversation at a time,
Building
every
the
single
nation.
day.
Yeah.
Every single day.
It's
You'll
nice
tell
to-
us your new doctor status, but shortly. Before that, Janet is going to welcome you with the day's quote. She'll tell you about something that was said some many years ago,
All right.
and the person who said it, and let's see whether those words mean anything to you today.
Many, many years ago.
Okay.
So July 28th, 1914, 111 years ago today, World War I began. And what happened is Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, triggering a global conflict. And then a few years later, a French general called Ferdinand Foch was signing the Treaty of Versailles. And one of the things he said when he signed that is he said, this is not peace. It is an armistice for 20 years. Others would translate to say, this is not peace. It's a temporary agreement that will last 20 years. What do you make of that, Dr. Kigame? Because I was telling Eric and Mariam earlier, it spoke to me a little bit about how we also make temporary agreements in our country that then come back to haunt us. But what's your interpretation of it?
I think he was pretty accurate because about 20 years later on, you had Second World War break out. I don't know whether I would call him a prophet, but
Maybe you should have said 40.
I wish.
Spot on.
Yeah, I wish. But I think, looking at how, world wars, global conflicts come and go, world leaders have a fairly good eye to see into the possibility of recurrence. And I think he was pretty accurate on that. We wish that we don't have another, third world war. Suddenly things are boiling towards that. But war is really a waste of everything, a waste of resources, a waste of life, waste of time. If we can avoid it, the better.
100%.
Well said.
I'll say something that does worry me about what Dr. Kigame has just said. It's that it seems to me that while the world has moved from these global, big world wars, proxy wars are becoming now the new front. So the powers themselves won't go to war with each other, but unfortunately, countries will be used as proxies for their fights, and then it's poorer people suffering as a result for no reason. It's none of your business. It's these powers have nothing to do with you, and you just find yourself in conflict, never-ending conflict.
Yeah, when you look at war, you're basically saying reverting to the law of the jungle. I mean, you don't want to talk, you don't want to look at issues. I go for your throat, you go for mine. And that will never work wherever you go.
True.
I look at the Israeli conflict, Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for example. It's really flexing muscle, and nations take sides. There is no single day war will be right.
True.
I studied a gentleman that writes a lot of songs on justice. He's called Garth Hewitt. And he's been a very, very big voice for the Palestinians, for example. He's a clergy, a member of the Anglican Church. And, the church has been fairly silent on that crisis. In fact, I would say maybe a little complicit. But there are voices that are saying, this is the way. And I'm one of those voices that says war is a total waste of time.
Complete waste of time.
Yes, absolutely. There's no need for it. If you want war, go among the lions and gorillas. And,
And fight them.
Yeah.
I always say I think wars will only end when there's no way to profit from them. That will always be.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you're right, because people tend to profit from war. So you see the U.S. flex its muscle against, a Middle Eastern nation, and they're looking for oil or they're looking for business connections and so on. But so it is with Africa. The wars in Congo, what's going on in Sudan is really about profits and profiteering.
It is.
Brings it into ethical leadership, and what kind of leadership then is required, to make sure that you're guiding your people not towards war, but towards prosperity.
Yeah.
Right? But before that, Director, I wanted you to tell us this doctor thing.
Yeah, I think it's just the end of an era. You pick up different things in life.
Yeah.
I wish we were talking about this many years ago, because I really wanted to go to school but couldn't. I mean, the country has always put obstacles in the way of people like me. But determination, and here it is. I mean, I've been grinding on it for maybe 6.5 years, and it's just the end of an era. I finally graduated. And when you graduate, they tell you you've been given power to now, do all that pertains to that particular program. And so I was given the power to do everything that pertains to the nexus of music and social justice. That's my pet subject. Very interested in how art is conjured for transformation and positive social change. Yeah.
I like that, the nexus of music and social justice.
Yes, you don't have any revolution or any significant transformation in the world without music. Yeah.
And is the hope to be able to just broaden how much more we can integrate music when it comes to social justice? Or now that you've graduated, how are you hoping to make this conversation something that can really come to life, especially given the times we're living in?
So for my particular research interest, I was looking at how we could harness more social justice music, especially in religious groups and movements. The church in particular is very detached from social justice music. And so I was looking at 3 case studies that have successfully used that, vis-a-vis Garth Hewitt, Mahalia Jackson, and Giuliani in our country here, that have effectively used faith-based activism through their music to actually bring about social change. And I'm saying that's the way to go. And so I'm unraveling all the theoretical and application, issues that the church is grappling with, the East African church in particular. If you look at what's going on now with abductions and police brutality, the femicides, and all of that, you would expect that a religiously packed region would be maybe more just and also engage a little bit more, but instead they put a wedge between faith and justice. And so I'm saying that wedge needs to be removed, because by definition, religion demands justice. And so if you have a largely geographically spread religious zone, then what's going on with people like Mwagodi or Boniface Mwangi or Bobby Wine should not be happening. In fact, not just clergy themselves, we should have more citizens of this region championing for justice, and we should therefore hear more songs about justice. We don't just wait for, Sauti Sol somewhere, Wimbo Moja, and you wait for Giuliani, this should be status quo. Yeah.
Just before we get into now the ethical leadership conversation, because I find that I want to get into Dr. Kigame's research on that nexus.
We should get a day for that.
I do agree we should get a day for that, 100%. I wanted to just ask, what was the reason, like in your research, did you find any reason why it seemed that the rougher music seemed to be, how do I call it? Yeah, I'm trying to find the polite way to say it, but basically, yeah, the rougher music seemed to be more geared towards social justice, as opposed to, yes, now whether it's gospel music or anything, you know, that has to do with the clergy and things like that. Because I'm thinking of hip hop as the very obvious social justice music.
So secular is more justice
than
gospel.
for lack of a
So in my research, I'm actually trying to debunk that notion of secular and sacred.
Right.
Because if something is just, then you cannot put it on either side. It is just the right thing to do. But also I'm debunking what gospel is, because gospel, vis-a-vis how Jesus used it, is about helping those in prison, those that are depressed and emotionally disturbed and so on. So if that is gospel, then you cannot just have this vertical, heaven-looking axis. You've got to have a horizontal axis as well, where it's not just love God, you've also got to love your neighbor as yourself. And loving your neighbor, of course, means that you treat them justly.
100%. Yeah, we do maybe need a separate conversation
We
just
should.
to go into
We
your research for your doctorate.
Yeah.
But let's get into now this conversation on ethical leadership.
I still think he's touching on
Yes.
certain things.
We are,
100%.
we are in the conversation.
Yes, we are.
Like
We are.
what you've asked is also
Yeah,
very
we
pertinent.
yeah. So ethical, you know, the word ethical goes back to ethos and how people ought to live. It's really prescriptive rather than descriptive. So when you talk about ethics, you're talking about conduct, you're talking about mannerisms, you're talking about how people live every day. And, you know, from the time of the Greeks, they were looking for what they call the good life. So you live a particular way to promote the good life. In the Judeo-Christian and into the Islamic religious, moral philosophizing, people now begin to talk about justice. And so at that point, you're saying it's not just enough to have a good life. That good life must be of this quality, but also must promote what is right. That's why you have this word, righteousness. So every time you look at ethics and you talk about ethical leadership, you are very closely talking about the morality of individuals or nations or organizations and how they behave or how they treat people every single day. And so ethical leadership has got to do with the character of the person that is leading, but also the management style or the decision-making component that affects other people. So if you brought it down to Kenya, for example, when we elect leaders, ethical leaders would not just be people with, you know, good character and conduct, you know, speak the right thing, do the right things privately, but also they must make decisions that are ethical. And so while you may have leadership per se in a company, you know, that produces bolts and nuts, that is only one aspect of leadership. Ethical leadership demands that the person who's producing bolts and nuts does that in a humane way, you know, pays the right salaries and whatever, checks the conditions of the workers. And if you stretch that to someone like a president, then you're basically saying that that particular office of the president carries with it ethical responsibility, that the holder of the office must be of good conduct, must be fitting to lead, because leaders of a nation or a company must behave in a particular way. But most importantly, because it's a role, it's a responsibility, they must also be seen to make decisions every day that are ethical in nature.
But you see, even in our constitution, we have attempted to go that route, you know, in saying we shall strive to have people who are ethical in positions of leadership, and not just in positions of leadership, but in public service. That at all levels of our public service, ethics shall be it. Article 10 of our constitution talks about, you know, what are principles of governance. And then we have chapter 6, which talks about, you know, leadership and integrity, you know. But, Reuben, I always struggle to figure out whether it's the citizens who actually have not internalized this whole definition of integrity and ethics and what it means, such that we'll always be having a moving target when you're talking about such and such a leader or such and such a public officer is ethical or not.
I agree with everything you've said except one word.
Which one?
Strive. We're not striving to apply values as a country. It is a requirement. In fact, Article 10 that you cited indicates that nobody in this country can make any political decision, appointments, anything without certain values. That you have to prioritize integrity, accountability, you know, patriotism, inclusivity. All of these are stated in Article 10. And it's not an either or, it's not a wish. You cannot lead without Article 10. And that's a prescription that we've made for ourselves. In fact, we adopt it in the preamble. That's how we want to live. But this is not a constitutional mandate. It's within the human nature to be led by values. Whether you look at, you know, traditional African, you look at religious institutions, we all want value-based leadership. And so by the time we come to chapter 6 of the Constitution, we are basically saying when it comes to the occupational office, this is what we want. So
my argument is actually not that. It's not that Kenyans do not want. We want, and that's why we put it in our constitution.
Right.
It's the definition of it. Are we clear about what is ethical? What is integrity?
I think
do you and I have the same interpretation of those two words?
Maybe yes and no. And yes and no because, for example, when we promulgated the Constitution in 2010, the bulk of the population had not actually read and understood the Constitution. In fact, you had pockets of Kenyans saying, you know, Raila has read it, so it's fine, Iko sawa. And that's the attitude, especially where literacy levels are low, and also in places where access to the Constitution is an issue. I'll give you an example. It took me about a year to get to read the Constitution because initially, of course, it was not in Braille. They finally put it in Braille. So I read it.
For a document that's very inclusive, that's
and by law, that ought to be the situation with all the other documents and public participation. But my point is that there are pockets that were removed from access. But secondly, also, you have political abuse where people take the Constitution and apply it the way they want in order to harness, you know, leadership in their locales and so on. And then you have the implementation challenge where by a particular time we ought to have maybe implemented certain aspects of the Constitution. The years pass, we're not bothered. But now, to answer your question, whether we understand it, whether we like it or not, the Constitution happens to be the highest law, you know, that binds all of us. In fact, when you assume office as the head of state, for example, you must swear to uphold that Constitution. And that in itself binds you so that there is no guessing as to whether, I feel like applying it or not. You've got to apply it in a kufunga. So we are able as citizens, vis-a-vis Article 1, to apply the implications of any constitutional pronouncements on any leader by virtue of the fact that the Constitution gives us that power.
Yeah.
So, for example, delegation. When you delegate, hiyo ni kukopesha tu. So, what we need to do is we need to spend more time, and I wish political as well as civil society, activists and so on would spend a little more time with citizens explaining the different components of the Constitution, the rights thereof and so on.
Yeah, let's
I don't
pause
think
there.
there is enough done on that.
All right. We'll continue on that. I wonder, I'd even written it down, whether it's possible for someone to lead ethically or if the system is rigged against honest leadership. But we'll come back. We're in studio with Dr. Reuben Kigame, presidential aspirant, musician, justice advocate. What does ethical leadership look like? That's the conversation we're having. You can speak to us on our digital platforms. We're back shortly. It is coming up now to 7:30.
Reuben Kigame is our guest. Reuben was a presidential aspirant in 2022, and then things happened. And he'll tell us about that, as we continue this conversation with IEBC, IDs, and so on and so forth.
Things did not happen.
Are you hoping to be in the ballot again in 2027?
I'm not hoping, I'm planning.
You're planning to be in the
I'm
ballot?
just getting ready to actually launch officially in a couple of weeks. It's about 2 years to the next election, so 2 years is good enough to roll it out. So, yes, this is the thing, Eric. I started a journey that I did not complete, and so I will be working very hard to complete it and complete it well.
All right.
Yeah.
Very good.
And the point is, a lot of people, would ask, so why another candidate? Mnatusumbua, mnajaza ballot paper. The thing is, what do I bring to the table that the others may or may not bring to the table? And that is my one strong mantra, that we need character-driven leadership. I don't just say ethical, because we've got to look at the character of the person we elect. And it's not just about the presidency. My insistence is we need to have character-driven MCAs, women reps, MPs, governors. You can see cases in the papers today, cases of people like Sonko, dragging on how many years later. It's all about ethical leadership. It's about character. That needs to be at the center of our political conversation. It's not, it should be, because that's where our responsibility as citizens succeeds or fails.
Has it ever been a conversation among the citizens?
It has been since I entered this space. Remember when the country was talking about BBI?
Yes.
Nation actually covered me when I was saying we don't need BBI, we need VBI, Value Building Initiative. That was 2020. This has been my insistence, because that's where we're going wrong. Not just as leaders, but as citizens. Because when it comes to every election, we suspend everything we talk about. You have WhatsApp groups, you have all these social media spaces saying this is what should be. When it comes to the election time, all of that is thrown out of the window. And I'm saying it shouldn't. In fact, what I'm looking for is, a coming together of maybe media, social justice groups, religious groups, and have them develop a scorecard that says let's put it positively. Elect leaders that, meet this threshold, at least these three things. They should never have stolen, tick. They should never have told, lies to the community, like Ntawajengea Barabara, tick. They should not have amassed illicit wealth, tick. Let's have a scorecard if I brought nothing else to the political conversation in Kenya, it would be that you ought to look at the character of your leader.
You know, we discussed this many months ago, the integrity index.
Yes.
Right? And it keeps coming up.
We do.
One day this thing will happen.
It will happen.
An integrity
It is
index.
happening.
Yeah.
I'm bringing it, to your faces here, to the table
Right?
here.
Yeah.
Yes.
It has to be, because that's where we're going wrong. You see, once these leaders get into office, and they'll come with all the niceties, money is only one aspect. They come with a very sweet tongue. Nitafanya hivi, all these manifestos. There will be no more brutality, tutafanya hivi. Then they get into office, and that entire thing is thrown out of the window. We need to hold our leaders accountable as citizens, and that's our duty. And say, ulituambia hivi na haukufanya. And the people that are succeeding to keep our leaders to account, it's the young people. Watu kama Eric na sisi, we just say ni sawa, wacha tuongee mambo ya mlima, tuongee, but the young people are saying, we have no time for that. We want you to be accountable. We want to see delivery. We don't want lies. In fact, they'll give you a name if you start lying.
Right.
So, and that's a good conversation. What I insist is, I have been consistent with this demand, with this kind of standard of leadership, and it's not about to change. And that's the thing I would want Kenyans to test me on. What did I say in 2018? Is that what I still say? The issue of consistency, because people will pick up all these things that I've been saying. For example, they'll come and say, we need a reset, we need a
transformation,
reboot, we need all this. But is that what they have always said?
Yeah.
So consistency is key, and it's not about jargonizing. Look at the person who is saying that. How did we, how have we behaved? How have we lived in our small spaces before we want all these offices?
Can I push back?
In fact, let me throw the spanner in the works.
Okay.
Many times people ask me, Reuben, so what have you done for Kenya to deserve to run for president, for example? And I think they should flip the question and also ask, what haven't you done? Because what I have not done is just as important as what I have done.
True.
For example, I have not stolen, and I'm not planning to. Yeah.
Because there are those who are just waiting for the
my
challenge.
faith and how I live also tells me that lying is a no-no. I can't tell Eric I'm going to meet you at 10, then I say I was joking.
Yeah.
That's how we should measure leaders.
Yeah.
I wanted to just throw another spanner in the works.
Okay.
There's a couple of people I can think of who are today either in cabinet or in parliament who had sterling records as far as their ethics were concerned, who had careers that were, done the right way, and especially on the question of ethics. I won't even talk about their track record as far as, their work was concerned, but yeah, from an ethics perspective. And then they get into parliament or they get into cabinet, something just happens.
Yeah.
So then what is our guarantee that if in 2027 we make the right decision, quote unquote, then that won't be the case. That it's not, the problem isn't just the air in parliament that's just poisonous, Yeah.
And that's where the Constitution comes to play, because the power to hold someone in office or recall them is not with the person in office, it's with the citizens. They've got the power. And Eric asked a question earlier on, this Constitution thing, is it just that we don't understand it, or is it something wrong with the citizens? I think there's something wrong with the citizens as well, because there's so much power given to us. It's clear that this is what we can do. We can even recall an MP, for example. but we don't exercise that power. So we are very good talkers. In fact, WhatsApp groups, social media, people talk, but acting. You know, we are about to recall, recently they were talking about recalling Esther Passaris, for example. Tunapanga, tunapanga. So you end up being just like Ruto, who says tumepanga, tumetenga. So what we need is action.
Yeah.
And I mean, one more day in office for this government should be a miracle.
Reuben.
We need to get to a point where there is citizen responsibility. And let's not begin to then say these people duped us and we are the ones who put them in office.
Reuben.
Yes, sir.
Joe Mungai said, it's clear to Kenyans who they will not vote for, but unclear who they will vote for. They know what they don't want, but they are unsure what they want.
He is absolutely right. Because everything happens. I don't know whether to call it witchcraft. I don't know what to call it. Right now, everybody knows the right leader, or so they seem to. When it comes to the action, you'll see wonders.
So what do we need? Because we need, everybody knows that something needs to be done. It's that thing that they say, you know, there was a job to be done. Everybody knew the job to be done. Somebody needed to do it. Anyone could have done it, but nobody did it, right? How shall we get someone to actually rally the people towards action? Who shall bell the cat?
Yeah.
So I'll tell you what I am doing. I don't know what you are doing.
Okay.
So, I mean, I sort of know you're building the nation on this, on these streets. Yeah. So what I've done is decided that 2027 for me will be a totally different ball game. That I'll spend time on the ground with the people, talking to them, not just about their constitutional power that they hold, but also talking about this ethical leadership as much as possible and helping them to see that it doesn't begin when somebody assumes office. That actually, if you are not ethical in your family, when, you know, your father leaves you land to divide amongst yourselves, and as the older brother, you swindle the other brothers. If you were in government, you do exactly the same.
Absolutely.
And if you are the one taking out, you know, your neighbor's shamba in the village, if you're given an office in government, you'll take, you know, you'll do exactly the same. And so I'm calling for ethical leadership, character-driven leadership, not just in government. And I want that, if I succeeded in spreading that message everywhere and never got to be your president, I think I would die a very happy person. Because where the rubber meets the road is we want to be ethical in public, but we do not want to be ethical in private. I think it should go the other way. What I am in private should then inform what happens in public.
Right. The question I'd asked earlier, which we'll come to, about whether the current system is rigged against honest leadership, but I was just trying to reflect on this part that we're asking each other of what will it take to rally people. I don't know that, I don't know whether it's how we've been socialized as Kenyans, and whether that also affects our ability to consistently push back and speak up. Because I've really been grappling with this issue.
How have we been socialized?
That's a good question.
How are we socialized as Kenyans?
Okay.
From your observation?
From observation, don't push back on authority or leadership. Give things, when things go wrong or things are heavy, we're kind of told to persevere. Vumilia, eventually it will work out. By the way, I'm not saying any of this is
Things
wrong.
can only get better.
Things can only get better, all of which is valid. But I think it also interferes with our ability to keep a consistent pulse when things are absolutely going wrong, which in many ways, in the country and many parts of the world, they are. So then I wonder, how do you reset that among Kenyans?
So Janet, there needs to be balance. You see, hope is a good thing. Peace is a good thing. You know, respect for authority is a good thing. But the beauty about this constitution, the Kenya constitution, is that it balances that for us so well, and states where, you know, everybody has this authority or position, but you also have this responsibility. And so what we need to do is then take a cue from the Gen Zs, for example, and say, hatutasimama maovu ya kitawala. Yeah. Even if we are killed, you see, the irony, Eric, of the current government is demonstrating that they hate the good. And what the young people are basically saying is, we want a government that is accountable. We want a government of integrity. We want a government that spends our taxes well. If that is wrong, and you push against them with violence, you know, all these goons and police brutality, then guess who is really the terrorist? Ruto and his goons and the police are actually the terrorists. And by the way, just for your information, I have written to the DPP about 10 days ago. Actually, I should be checking
for replies.
Yes, and asked him to prosecute Murkomen, Haji, Kanja, Amin, and all these guys in charge of security for using excessive force against otherwise peaceful protesters, and then failing to apprehend those who have actually come out as disturbers of the peace. And I think as long as we have these conversations in the, you know, at the front of our spaces, something will give. Because, you know, we are watching, and there is no way you can abuse law, abuse the Constitution, and remain ethical. If you are unethical, we actually want you out of office.
The fact that...
We don't, Reuben, we don't. We don't. We don't want unethical people out of office.
I want.
Yeah, you...
I'm impatient.
So do I.
You're saying
and I have a vote next to me, my official
of Kenyans
spokesperson.
do not want unethical people.
National declared spokesperson. You think we don't want ethical leadership, or we don't
Show
want
me by example any point where we actually went specifically for ethical leadership.
Last year,
Yes.
beyond the taxes, it was about ethical leadership.
It was about accountable governance. All right? But when it comes to choosing leaders,
That's ethical leadership.
yes, when it comes to choosing leaders, show me where we have actually said, right, so now here we are, and we are not going to tolerate anything less than ethical.
Mike
You
back
see-
in 2002.
That was a happy accident. It was an absolute happy
Okay, let me
accident.
go. Kivuza Kibwana.
Yeah, I was about to cite that example. And by the way,
Kivuza Kibwana
is
not even being mentioned here.
He's a very close friend of mine. We work together.
I can't speak for the nation, but the people of Makueni spoke. But go on.
Certainly. Yeah, but what I want to say to Eric is this. When you look at the statistics of our country right now, we may actually oscillate towards recycling old leaders and so on who give us all these handouts and so on. But this is not going to continue. That you can take to the bank. Because we have more young people than the older generation that are driving us into tribal politics and so on. If you look at the so-called, I underline that, official opposition, this is like an appendage of the existing government. Gachagua was Ruto's deputy. So he cannot lecture anybody on change. Absolutely not. You have people who have been in office, Matiang'i and all of these guys, ganging together. But who was telling us about the government being of shareholders? So the young people, and I hear them, I feel them, I believe that I speak for them, are saying this far and no farther. You cannot continue to dupe us. We read, we understand, we are informed, and even if it took another 5 or so years, or maybe more, you will all be out, because tunakuja na nguvu.
Statistically, a majority of our MCAs are youthful at the point of election. Okay? They're around the ages below 35 or slightly above 35. Now tell me that we have ethical leadership in our county assemblies countrywide.
We have not
had. My point exactly.
No, you're tossing a coin there. We've not had this conversation in the mainstream. It is there now. And wherever we go, for example, in some of the town halls, the kind of meetings we're having with communities, we're basically saying, when you choose your leaders next, I mean, we've messed up before, or maybe people have bought their way into power. But when you do it next, this is what to look for. And we're insisting that character is at the center. We may not have succeeded in the past. We will succeed. And I am a strong advocate of the fact that the tide is changing, and it will change in my lifetime.
Okay.
I
was just going to say I'm between everyone because we're just not all on the same page.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the biggest worry. Young people, older people, there's a disconnect. I think to the point we've made here, people do want change. People do want ethical leadership, accountable governance. People want that because it affects your pocket. It affects your ability to move safely in a country.
Yeah.
But I do feel like even as Dr. Kigame is speaking, I grapple with the fact that maybe we're just not on the same page.
Yes.
And that's dangerous, and I think people undermine it. They undermine how dangerous it is that we're just not aligned.
I agree. Because I think of it as diagrams.
Yeah,
Sorry,
no,
just to,
go ahead.
in my head, right? What the fixer was saying, that people know what they want. But they know what they don't want, right? So if I think of us as like in a big circle, everyone who knows what they don't want, fantastic. That's one big happy family. But then the minute we now start breaking into what's ethical, what next, who next? Is it a young person? Is it someone from this united opposition that's coming up? Is it someone from, the outskirts, or not from within a political family? Is it someone that we have not seen before, that we have not heard of before? Now that's splinter cells all around. And you're right, that's where the problem is. But Reuben, also, before we go into the break, I had this other worry that as much as we are talking about ethical leadership, we may almost overdo, and I don't think you can overdo ethics, but at the expense of every other thing that we should be looking for the next president, the next member of county assembly, the next member of parliament.
Let me just comment on that real quick.
It'll just be like an ethical person who has no plan.
You see, when we introduced the topic, I said that ethical leadership has 2 dimensions. It has the moral, the character dimension where you look at the person, but you also have the management aspect where you look at the decisions that are being made, the policies that are set in place. And the bottom line question is, do they work for the people? That's why we keep talking about Utu, for example, human dignity. Do they promote human dignity or do they take it away? So you don't just say, oh, this is a good person, You also have to look at how have they managed the little spaces they have managed before. And that's what we are also spreading in the, with the people as I travel around the country in preparation for my launch. I'm basically saying, if someone has been able to help you in this way in the community, done this, evaluate that, and then elect such a person on the basis that he's not just a good person, but also this is what they are capable of doing.
Okay. Right.
Okay.
And that's what meritocracy is. And once you get into the actual management of the country, for example, the way you appoint leaders, the policies you implement will tell whether you're an ethical leader or not. For example, at this point during my campaign preparations and so on, the one thing I insist on is surrounding myself with the kind of people I am wanting in the ethical space.
Right.
So I've deliberately decided I can work with some people, but I cannot work with certain
others.
people. There is money I can receive, there's money I will never receive. And you see, leadership by example is what is lacking. That I can come here and say, I will not take a bribe, and charge you as my friends. If you see me take a bribe, then come for me. You know? Yeah.
Sorry, just hold your thought just there. We have to go on a short break, but we'll be right back and we'll continue on that thread. And if you have questions coming in from the calls as well, Peterson from Nairobi, just before we go on the break, let's hear his question, get on the break, and then we'll answer it afterwards. Good morning, Peterson.
Good morning, Boog and Eric.
All right, what's your question for Dr. Kigame?
Not even the question. If I say a question, this is a deep and important question. Ethics, tribalism, and corruption are interconnected challenges in Kenya. And solving them requires a mix of political will, civic education, institutional reform, and cultural change. And to do that, these are just here possible solutions.
All right.
We should have at least education from a young age.
Okay.
And let it be taught in schools for practical examples.
All right. Thank you.
Then, yes, then we should at least protect whistleblowers like Mange last time was arrested.
Right.
These are the people who are trying to bring out such practices in government. So they also need protection. And finally, there is no single solution, but a national commitment to justice, education, and accountability can create a cultural shift. The people must demand better, and institutions must deliver.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
100%.
Peterson, thank you very much for that call, and we'll also be picking more calls in the next hour after this break. Reuben Kigame is our guest. He says he wants to be on the ballot in 2027. Would you vote for somebody like Reuben? He says he's actually pushing for character-driven leadership. Our conversation today is on that, character-driven leadership, ethical leadership. Would you choose an ethical leader in the next election? Keep it here for that. It's coming up to 8 a.m. Good morning. Please.
Yes.
Dr. Reuben Kigame is our guest for today, and he says he has told us on this show that he wants to be on the presidential ballot in 2027. He wanted to be on the 2022 ballot. IEBC did a thing on him, and he'll tell us exactly what happened in the last election, and whether he's prepared to overcome that challenge this time. But, Jano, just remind us the day's quote, please.
The day's quote.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that everybody who's now joining us knows. Today's quote is this one, as we continue our conversation with Reuben Kigame. He says he is pushing for character-driven leadership, value-based leadership. And our question this morning is, are we really ready for value-based leadership, character-driven leadership? Do we know what that means? Would we elect somebody like Reuben Kigame to be our president in the next election? Or are we still looking for, we're still looking for the one? We still haven't found the one.
Yeah, and maybe they're right in front
And what
of
would
us.
the one look like?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, my.
The quote?
The quote is by Ferdinand Foch, who was a French general back in 1919, a few years after the beginning of the First World War. He made a quote and he said, "This is not peace, it's an armistice for 20 years. It's very wild that it then 20 years later on the day. But yeah, this is not peace. It's an armistice for 20 years. He was making reference to the fact that a few years previously, in 1914, on July 28th, the First World War had officially begun. And a few years later, when the world was trying to come together and say, this cannot be how we're moving, they put this treaty together, but he warned that the treaty ending the First World War was weak and unfair, and it would only delay the next war. And he was right, because 20 years later, the Second World War broke out.
I would have made that statement in 2022 and say, this is not an election, it's an armistice. 5 years.
Waiting for 5 years. What happened in 2022, Reuben?
There is stuff I can talk about here, this stuff, maybe we need more time. Basically, the IEBC lawyer that, filed the stay of the judgment by Murima, said in court, and I quote, "If we include Reuben Kigame on the ballot, then none of the two candidates will get 50 plus 1. I have a soundbite for that particular legal pronouncement.
What took you to court?
Two things. First of all, challenging the insistence that independent candidates in particular produce not just the signatures, but they wanted us to produce ID copies. So we were not challenging the signatures, we were challenging the ID copies because that was infringement.
Whose ID copies?
The guys giving you the signatures needed to also give you the copies of their IDs.
You need 1 million, right?
No, you needed 2,000 in every county, so majority that would be like 48,000.
Okay.
So getting the signatures was not the problem. We just felt this is not just unfair, but it's also infringement on data, of this. And by the way, in petition E160, we won the case. IBC was told to quash that particular requirement. And so I tabled my signatures, and Chebukati would not receive them. I brought them to the media, by the way, just to show these are the signatures that were not received. Media did not pay attention. but so that was one. The other, and this is the real battle for 2022. Number one, you look at the constituencies that were involved, and by constituencies I don't mean Budalangi, The first constituency that was in contest was the religious groups. Ruto wanted to certainly amass majority votes from the church. I happened to be in good books with the church as well. Then you had the disability vote, 1.7 million in the IBC register. Then you had the youth vote that did not want any of the old crop. Then you had the artists and, all these. So I was definitely going to be an interesting candidate. And this information I'm giving you is from insider, sources of friends that are in government and so on. And by the way, it's not just Ruto and his team that did not want me on the ballot. Even Azimio did not want me on the ballot. And that was seen particularly when we finally went to the Supreme Court. Azimio actually wanted my case dismissed because, of course, I was challenging the nomination of the four. And so you can see it was across the board. But hiyo ni ya siku ingine kwa sababu kesho pia ni siku. The most important thing, and this is what I would want to make public on your show, mine is to offer myself. Mine is to give Kenyans a different way of doing government. It's up to Kenyans to say we want Reuben, or we want status quo, or we want the so-called official opposition, or we want Maraga, or Mtata, or anybody else. So what I bring to the table is character-driven leadership. That is what I want for you. And the best part of any plebiscite is you choose who you want. Yes.
Do you have any apprehensions? I know you're not saying too much about 2027. I know you're saying that in a few weeks or
yes,
so
I'll be launching officially.
You'll be launching.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering whether you have any doesn't seem like you have any reservations given what you dealt with. You do have reservations.
I do have some reservations. For example, the whole exercise of how they've managed the IEBC is still something not just me, but the average Kenyan is worried about. I think there was a court case challenging the process and nominations, all of that. But I'm more worried about the bolts and nuts. If you took your phone today, and I challenge any average Kenyan to do that, and you went to, for example, the ORPP registry, and you checked the party that you are registered under, maybe more than 50% of Kenyans will realize they're actually in parties they never signed up for. That we have done practically across the country. People are in parties they never signed up for, meaning that entire register is faulty. Now, if it can be faulty at that level, what is going on? So the integrity of it is something I'm very worried about, because you may actually vote a particular way, you may even register in a particular way, and then realize that the systems are manipulated. So one of my concerns is, how do we have a system that is accountable, a system that is verifiable, that if I sign up to be in ODM or any other party, 2 years from now, when I'm going for the election, I'll not find myself in DAP or any other. So I have genuine concerns about the integrity of our electoral system. I wish we could actually go into blockchain and in such a way that you had a tamper-proof digital option, but more so, I wish all the results were actually declared at the polling station and that was final. So you don't have all these 34A forms, you have this tallying center. It's already been tallied. And so that notwithstanding, the most important thing is to offer oneself within that mess, to provide leadership, to provide the conversations like going on right here this morning.
President William Ruto is telling everybody who wants to challenge him for the position in 2027, lete sera zako. Ni sawa, Ruto must go, ni sawa, Kasongo ni sawa, but what are you offering?
I tweeted the other day and said that is actually not what he's saying. His main insistence is that those challenging him have no plan. Hawana plan?
Yes.
And before you look at what other people's plans are, you look at what Ruto's plan is. And I tweeted and said, Ruto's plan includes abductions in order to stay in power. All these killings and so on, and shoot Mugu, this is how he's managing. And we are saying, plan yetu ni kumtoa kwa uongozi ndiposa tutoe huo ujinga. Because you cannot rule people. You cannot force yourself on people, first of all. You cannot then kill the people that you lead. You cannot, bring goons on them. You don't do such things and call yourself a leader. So our plan is to remove him from office and institute, if he is listening, a government of human dignity, a government that fights corruption like there was nothing else to fight, a government that implements the Constitution, a government that ensures you have character-driven leaders, a government that is devolved, and devolved is big. Right. I like to use the word demarginalize.
Okay. But Reuben just paused there for a second.
No, he wants to know what we want to institute in his place. Those are the things we want to put in place, Ruto.
But that's not a plan. Izo si sera. That's just following the law by and large, which 100% we should. It's a strategy.
But that
not
is
a plan.
Our problem. You see, that is the software of building the nation. That you have your value system in place. He doesn't have the value system in place. Day one, he appoints people with criminal records. It almost feels like if you have an affinity with crime, you will fit in Ruto's government. We want none of that. We want people of character. Kama uliiba, kama wewe ndio unatusi watu mdomo bagi, we don't want you in office. That's the simple thing. And even Ruto himself, you can't keep making promises. No more abductions. Hamtahamishwa makwenu. Then you come and do exactly Ruto is not fit to be in office.
Okay. Mariam, you're still...
You remember what I said earlier? And I was like, there's the danger here I see in the push for ethical, which is 100% important. I'm not understating it in any way. We need it badly. But I'm worried that as we get to 2027, we'll now have ethical leaders with no plan. And then that's a whole other problem on its own.
So these things...
they're good guys.
Wait,
but they don't know what to do with the office.
Daktari, are you able to pause on what Mariam has asked? Just hold that thought to come back to it, just so that we don't lose our caller. Gikundi is on the line. Gikundi, good morning. Apologies, I didn't get where you're calling from. From Meru. Gikundi, good morning. Do you have a question or comment this morning for Dr. Kigame?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
My word in response is that... Hello?
Yes, go ahead. We can hear you.
No matter how long or how much we are going to talk about corruption, because right now the flag is morally decayed. To an extent whereby even those who are supposed to be role models, especially religious leaders, including the one in the studio right now, whereby even them themselves, they were supposed to be the voice of the voiceless. But right now, you can see even when we push the president to respond and go to the field of accountability and good government, he is in a position to bless them when they call them in the state house. Today, he blames them. The next day, he calls them because they know they are going to get something from the state house. They end up attending there without even being paid and supporting even people which we were, especially agencies who were against it, which were pushing them even last year on the street. Yet they never feel ashamed. They just go to the state house supporting the same band and the same government.
Gikundi, let me ask you. Gikundi, if I may ask you a question. If you were to vote differently in the next election, what would you be going for?
Where I'm going to.
Yes.
The unfortunate is that we have a lot of people with intent and we adopt the character. Yet, like for Maraga or PL Mumbai, they have to come to contend for election. We are basket into the pool.
Would you vote? You as Gikundi?
Yes.
Wachana na watu wengine. Yes. You as Gikundi, when you go to the ballot in 2027,
I'm going for Maraga.
Why?
Because according to the lack of records, he has no question of character as well as his legacy in the previous office if you were lending his concern.
Thank you. So you're going...
Like Karasaju and Matiani and the other people, they have question of character whereby even we induce corruption and manipulation of other things we intend to forget something because even where we are voting for Ruto, he had a lot of logic questions which were being raised in Israel, yet we try to perceive as Kenyans that he was being basically. Yani we intend not to, yani wakati mwingine Wakenya wanajitwanya, yani wanakutetea kujua ni matoto wanapenda umewekelewa na wakiwa wanaona.
Sawa Gikundi. Thank you Gikundi. We get you. It's about, so he says he's going for ethics. He's going for different. He wants change.
Right, he does. I know at some point I would love for us to go a little bit into Dr. Kigame's music. I'm also very curious to understand, because of your lived experience, the intersection of disability, what it's taught you about leadership, what it's taught you about how people perceive and integrate others. But before that, I think Mariam was asking you something opposing.
Yeah. And I like her question. Maybe because we are not into the, different nitty-gritty breakdowns of the plan, so to speak. I'll just give you one example.
Okay.
Education. Look at the figures in 23, 24. The government spent 656.6 billion on education. Okay? That's the highest spender in our budget. Now, 656.6, while using their own statistics, you know, the 2023-24, you would be able to allocate 51 billion to primary education. You can allocate 110 billion to secondary or high school education. You can allocate 92 billion to, you know, university education, and about 44 billion to the TVET and all this. If you manage to allocate that, because we're just using the existing figures, the existing enrollments, you would need about 298 billion to provide free education. Now, you're spending about 4 billion on the CDF, all of those. Now, so if you allocate 656.6 and you don't give free education, then you are basically saying you're using more than 358 billion on programs that have nothing to do with education. And so why I would go at corruption with a hammer would be because, for example, you have all these imaginary schools that don't exist. You have allocations, you know, to programs that have nothing to do with education. And when you could actually provide totally free education with just under 300 billion, and with another 95 billion, you could actually build a lot of the missing classes. So basically, the government is a looting trough. And it's not just in education. You can see how SHA has been implemented. You can see how they are facing issues of, housing, you know, building houses for people that don't need houses, all of this. What if that money was actually used for education? But more so, you have ridiculous decisions like the president wanting to build a church at State House, raising State House allocations, and then you keep telling parents you don't have money for this and the other. That is why some of us want Ruto out of office, because he's acting rogue, literally. That is not integrity. That's not the correct way to spend our taxes. And so I'm with the young people who are basically saying we don't just want Ruto out. We also don't want his cronies, the KANU orphans, and all these people that have brought us to where we are in office. Now, I'll put a finger on one group of people in this country that are part of our impediment to that realization: the middle class. They're too comfortable, and so all you do is talk, but you're the ones paying the loans. You're the ones, you know, the average person right now is speaking the language of the young people. We don't just want these people out. We also want a clean replacement, maybe of people who have never been there.
Right.
So many questions. I want to think about how big Kenya's middle class is.
To see.
Yeah.
To be the sway vote.
To be the I mean, I think definitely big enough to be a sway vote. But then I always push back at that idea that the middle class are that big a vote. I don't know, but let's take a break, and then we'll be back with, of course, Dr. Kigame. We're discussing ethical leadership. Hashtag is Fixing the Nation NTV. If you want to call in and ask him a question or give your comment as well, 0719-038-858.
And Ocheng is actually active on WhatsApp, where he sent us the video from.
Yes.
This morning he was commenting about the story about Nganyas, saying there's absolutely nothing amazing about Nganya in Kenya. These things are noisy, they're lawless, they're dirty. If there was anything good, the world would have copied it.
Oh, wow. That's harsh. I think it's harsh. It is harsh.
We are right back to ethics there, values.
Right.
Yeah.
Culture, I think culture can exist within the law. It's not impossible. So the lawlessness is problematic.
They're dirty.
They're not dirty though.
Yeah, but let's talk about Ocheng for just a second, because when I was in the States last, I had some conversations with Kenyans in the diaspora. And I mean, the thinking is right. The anger is bursting at the seams there. But what I always find very interesting is that anyone who goes to them can swing their opinion. Just recently, I think we had Gachagua go, and you had droves that were talking ethnic.
Right.
So, you know, being out of the country is not necessarily a plus or minus. And the conversations, my challenge to the diaspora actually should remain part of what Ocheng is saying. How do you just keep remitting and remitting and remitting without participating actively in the conversations that go on here? And so I want to challenge especially those that are investing to also make this government accountable. I talked to a group of people that were saying that Adani thing, if we were given a chance to actually run that airport, finance it, we can.
Yeah.
And they can. And then, Eric, the other thing is the interest rates here. I mean, even if they wanted to borrow money there, the interest rates are fairly low compared to here.
Okay.
So they can actually make a big change. And so part of my diaspora discussions were, how do we involve Kenyans out there here post-election to be part of the solution to our youth challenge with employment?
Let's pause that. That's good. How do we integrate diaspora into the issues that we have here post-election? I think that's what, if I understood it. Caxton from Butere is on the call, one of our fixers, our regular fixers. Good morning, Caxton. Do you have a question or comment this morning? Caxton from Butere, can you hear us? Okay. Maybe he'll come back to us.
Stepped away for a bit.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
All right, but we'll be back.
We'll be back with him. Sorry, Dr. Kigame. All right, we understand we now have him on the line. Caxton, good morning. Do you have a question or comment this morning?
Morning to you.
Good morning.
Say hello to Mheshimiwa. And I really like his strong words about how to deal with corruption, going with the hammer. There is no way that we can keep on borrowing money. Hizi pesa ziko na hawa jamaa hapa. Ni ufunge milango, passport zote, hawa watu watoe ziko hapa. I mean, like currently we have murderers in this government. We have people with pending cases who've actually messed counties and other things. Fixing the nation is holding these people to account. All passports should be withdrawn. Again,
most importantly, jail.
Like this CDF. Why should you have CDF and all of a sudden say that that there is no money for education? If CDF actually really used to support education, why not put it in one basket and then have free education and even free health? Why are we creating, shortcuts? I mean, it's like too many rats digging one hole. Yeah. It has never been possible. I really like the way Kagame is talking. Kenya does not lack brains. We have brainy fellows here.
Thank you, Caxton.
Thank you very much.
Not the politicians.
Thank you for your views. Just to emphasize that those are Caxton's views and not the views of Nation Media Group and TV Nation FM. His views all the same.
And mine.
And then those are Dr. Reuben Kigame's views.
I can exonerate you as a media house.
Okay. That would be.
I have an issue with how we go into, picking and selecting a leader. All right. So listening to you, Reuben, and the things that you've said, how we are going to run this country better is we fight corruption. Everybody who will sit there where you're seated today in the run-up to 2027 will use exactly those same words. We are going to fight corruption. Not
exactly, Eric. If you see the tweet that was put out by Ndi, He put it actually in 2021, and he was the economic advisor since then of UDA and so on. But he says if you're looking for UDA to deal with corruption, that's not the platform we are running on. In fact, he then goes ahead and says, if you want a fresh start, then you choose Reuben Kigame.
That's what he said then.
Yes, he said.
Okay.
And I've just retweeted
his principle.
He's retweeted. I mean, Ndi is being honest.
The point I'm making, Reuben, is that very many candidates will come and tell us, we fight corruption, we salvage how much we are losing, we'll hear the words of 2 billion shillings a day, we'll hear 700 billion shillings a year, and so on and so forth, that this is the panacea to our
Eric,
problems. Let me finish my question.
I'm basically telling you that Ndi is saying they will not do that.
Ndi said, okay, and I'm saying his principle didn't. So I'm going by the principles. The people who are going to be on the ballot, who want to be on the ballot, what they're going to come and tell us is the same thing. Now, how do we tell that Reuben is a better person than the other one? Just like Mariam was saying before the break, there we have good people. We have Reuben Kigame, yes, we have David Maraga, yes, we have so on and so forth. But how exactly do we know that you actually are capable of becoming a president?
Exactly.
Not just
our topic this morning.
A minister, president.
Yeah. So ethical leadership. It begins by looking at how did Reuben Kigame run Fish Media? How did he employ tribal on the tribal basis? Did he pay his workers, etc., etc.? How did he run the Kigame music schools? Did he succeed? So did he take care of the youth issues and so on? You look at somebody's track record. I'm just giving you an example.
Yep.
And it's not just about Kigame. Whether it's Omtata or Maraga or Ruto or whoever, Sifuna, when they present themselves for office, you ask, how have they performed where they have been? And I keep insisting we must also ask, what have they not done? Because what they have not done is just as essential, and that's what we don't want to look at. So when somebody like Matiang'i, I'm just taking a random example, comes and says, I want to be president. So you look at how he ran the education sector, how he ran the internal security docket, etc., etc. For me, as Reuben Kigame, as long as the memories of going to Yala River to see what happened when he was internal security, for example, when I remember those images, talking to the doctors, talking to the mortuary attendants and so on, talking to the villagers, those sound bites would never make me vote for someone like Maraga, even if I was not running. I said Maraga? I said Matiang'i, sorry. I apologize. So, and that should be the litmus test. How have we led? So Gachagua comes and he's speaking, verbatim, this is wrong with that government. He was part of that government. So these are the close, almost like CCTV type assessments we should have with every candidate. And so if Justice Maraga comes and says he wants to run, we are so quick to say he annulled an election. We need to look at how he led the court system. And it's not just Maraga, everybody. I look at someone like Eric Latif and how you have worked in media. Nothing, this is a personal opinion, nothing would prevent me from hiring you to be in charge of ICT, for example. Because I've looked at how your track record, and I can vouch for you. I look at Janet and say, mweke pale because ako qualified. That's meritocracy.
If you just pause at that point, when you look at all these others who've been heads of executive arms of government, right? Yeah. You said Justice Maraga, head of the judicial arm of government. You looked at Fred Matiang'i, a cabinet secretary, senior most cabinet secretary in the Uhuru administration, especially in the latter years, and so on and so forth. They have experience running the bureaucracy of government. They understand how government decisions are made and what needs to happen to move that behemoth of thing called government, to make it move. You're telling me to look at then Reuben Kigame and his management of Fish Media and his management of Kigame music schools and so on and so forth. And I can't compare those two. No, if Kigame was a good person, and Kigame is a good person because I know Kigame for very many years. If Kenya was like Ethiopia, where we had a president who's a head of state, moral compass of the country, Reuben Kigame fits.
You know, Eric,
President executive, I don't know whether you can actually negotiate with fellow countries.
Let me tell you something, Eric, and I hope you don't forget that in order for government to run effectively, it is about the systems. You put anybody there, as long as the systems are working right, that you have an accountable structure, that this is the role of the president, this far and no farther. And put in Mariam, put in anybody, that system will work. As long as you have the wrong systems in place, you know, you can bend the law here, twist parliament there, whoever you put there will not succeed. But secondly, I would say this, if the disqualification would be on the basis of who has been or been close to the bureaucracy of government and so on, then most of these people would not qualify. Because you would look at someone like, let's say, let me just take a random example of, let's say, Umtata, and you would say, he's been an activist, so he cannot run a government. Yeah. But when you look at, for example, how he's been able to analyze our debt crisis, you know, all this odious debt stuff. Now, if you are looking for someone to solve, you know, a government's economic challenge, if you put someone like that in office, he will actually fix. Because he knows the know-how. It's the technocracy is important.
All right, apologies. We do have another caller. We don't want to lose them. I believe it's Edward. Edward from Yata, good morning. Do you have a question or comment?
Yes, good morning to you all.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Reuben, who's here?
Bussier to you.
Okay. Now I'm happy with your discussion. I'm happy with the direction you are trying to analyze your assessment. But this country has got one big problem: observance of the rule of law. We have maybe some nonsense we have made about our politicians doing blah, blah, blah. But which law or which organ is there to take them accountable for the wrong that we are crying about? Because we cry that corruption, we cry that there is impunity, we cry that people being abducted and killed. So what? Because until we have a system that a leader can be held accountable, even when in office, so that he sets an example to others who are coming that there is a rule of law that I have to observe in my ruling, then we shall continue making noise, we shall continue doing what, but I don't know what the end game will be. Me, my observation is, if we could have made a judicial that has been empowered even to take on the president when he's wrong and make him accountable, maybe to set an example that we need to observe the rule of law when we are doing. For example, we have said no politics in church. There's an arm that goes to the church on the pulpit. It's making a lot of politics openly. Nothing is done. We have got a section of people who have been stopped from even attending church because the politicians. Others are enjoying it. So how do we get the line that even the leader should be accountable?
Thank you.
For the wrong that is being done.
Right.
Maybe as a country we can lead somewhere, because if we talk about corruption, we are crying about money being stolen. Blah, blah. Even the president admits there's money being stolen. So what?
Okay. Thank you, Edward. Thank you very much, Edward. Thank you for your thoughts. Thank you for weighing in on the conversation. I know we still want to I still really want to get into Dr. Kigame's music journey, right? A little bit. But I don't know, you were still making a point that
if you looked at certain characters that have led, like Zelensky was an artist, you've had a footballer, you know, an artist, you have a pastor in Malawi, who's a president, etc.
A DJ in Madagascar.
A DJ in Madagascar. So it's not about the profession. It's about statecraft and what the office, the particular office requires. And so I would say, if we were to be able to put character-driven leaders into place, those character-driven leaders, if you put like a president with character at the top, then you don't stop there. You go to character with regard to implementation of, that statecraft. So you ask, is this person able, for example, to appoint people in the right place? Because if you look at President Ruto, for example, he is in the field of agriculture. So government is not about agriculture. You would have to be able to work with other experts. I'm a philosopher. I mean, I come to it with ideation. But ideation in and of itself cannot fix a nation. So it means the ability to appoint the right people into the right spaces. Let me give you a quick example. I graduated recently. And the chief guest needed to be the CS education. He was nowhere. That is what Kenya looks like. So you can have a medical doctor in charge of education. You can have a crony, that has no economic knowledge in charge of the economic docket. Right. That is the wrong way to do government. You pick people according to their expertise, experience, and put them there. The Ministry of Health should be led by a health professor or someone, a surgeon of long standing that understands things about health. I know there was a series of tweets you put out a few years ago about royalties, right? And about, I just wanted Do you really want to go there, Janice?
Okay,
let's go into social justice and music.
That's where you'd rather go.
Yes.
Okay, the royalties was still an important one. And you did put it publicly.
Yeah, I do have a few cases, by the way, in court on that. So let those
be. All right. Yeah. Are you still making music?
Absolutely. I just released my 30th album last year. Yeah.
And does politics inform your music? Music is the mirror of society, but for you, what really is it that goes into your music?
People imagine that, for example, for us, faith-based musicians, they imagine that politics is a no-go zone, and that's where we make the mistake. You would have to go back to before my running for office to know that as early as 1992, I was already writing songs about, refugee crisis, about the need for a better country. I have a song out there on YouTube called I Have a Dream, not the Martin Luther King one. I have a dream for Kenya. So I've been writing songs, and part of what drove me to my study is that the church frowns at that particular category of songs that I've written. So if you go to my channel now, you'll find a song like Huniachi, which is a song of hope and so on. It has like over 23 million views. But a song like Who Will Help the Refugees or Cry the Pain, which is about the 1998 bombing in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam, maybe 100,000. So I was curious, why are we frowning at issues of justice? And yet they are the ones that drive, how we live every day. And so I don't have all the answers, but I'm very curious to see that musicians do more, with their music. If you go back, for example, in Kenya's history, the Mashifta, the Kalamashaka, these guys were already speaking truth to power. By the time you have the Eric Wainainas and so on, they're responding to something gone wrong in the Moi era and so on. And what my study is about is that music is a big part of social change and political change as well. So that we sing people either into power or out of power. Yote yawezekana bila Moi, you know. And if you check, for example, the Arab Spring, it actually was ignited by a gentleman standing on a street in Cairo and with his guitar. You know, Miriam Makeba in South Africa, Bob Marley, you know, Fela Kuti, you know, Thomas Mafumo. These guys have been speaking truth to power. You cannot divorce music from activism at all.
You really can't. I think the more people realize art and social justice, one and the same, you know, artivism. The easier it gets.
I like that word.
Yeah. There's some feedback on our socials. Let me start with YouTube. Looking through, Smallest Ever says, Ruto will win easily because people are divided on whom to support among the opposition candidates. Remember, one person said, an organized minority will defeat an unorganized majority, which is 100% true. And I think we've discussed this as well. It's like an organization, and so I'd want to get your views on joining an organized minority, so to speak.
It's very simple. Two things. One, I would not be eager to join or work with people that have a record that is questionable. If I know you've stolen, I don't want you to run with me or next to me. Right. But secondly, since we're talking about organizing, the way you do it to include everyone that thinks like you, even if they don't act like you, is you use the onion effect. So you peel layer by layer. So at the kernel, the center, you have the people that are driving the agenda and the change, and you keep going like that. I mean, everyone in Kenya belongs to Kenya, and that includes those that may not think like you. So you've got to have a place for them, but it's not in the inner ring. So I would surround myself with the real change movers and layer by layer like that until all of the Kenyans oscillate around my agenda.
Right, and it's a big giant Kenyan onion.
Yes.
Kigame says meritocracy equals amen. There's a valid reason why our health and education systems are in chaos. Peter Otieno says business and government are two very different things. The real patriots are those who propose changes to many key parts of the Constitution. Otherwise, when rules are the same, then the game doesn't change.
The only challenge is if you put a businessman in office, he'll trade with the people.
Hey, that's a quote, Janu. You put a businessman in office, he'll trade with the people.
Absolutely.
Brimzim says, with corruption and imperialism kill. We've lost a lot of Gen Zs because of the thirst to remain in power, 100%. Then Kenya will never be like, this is Brimzim again, Kenya will never be like Singapore if it ignores ethics and values in society. We need character-driven leadership like Kigame. All right?
Thank you.
And it goes on, but very like interesting views.
Comments, right? There's on X, Anon says, corruption isn't just theft, it's betrayal. A lot of our dreams, a weapon wielded by cowardly leaders hiding behind power.
Absolutely.
But unity ends it. This fight is ours, and we will not lose.
I hope he unites with me.
Unity
wins.
He said, Ruto seemed to resonate with Mamamboga, Boda Boda, and hustlers during his campaigns. Being mere humans, would be forgiven for falling to see the cunningness of the elections. We can only know a person's true character when he has gotten into power.
Yes, which...
I don't think so. I think you can know, you know a person's true character mainly before they get into power. Because you have a chance to observe them without the power. And so if someone is able to control small power, then he'll be able to control big power. If somebody is corrupted by little power, he will be certainly corrupted by big power.
Stanford in Zimbabwe on Facebook says, watching from Zimbabwe, I'm surprised the conversation talks straight to our problems here. You can remove the name Kenya and replace it with Zimbabwe, and the conversation will still be relevant.
And many other countries, by the way.
But you know, I went to Zimbabwe, and maybe let me give a positive something out of the southern part of Zimbabwe, where right next to the ruins, the Munamutapa, the Zimbabwe ruins. First of all, I noticed that there are hardly any fences around any home. So that level of trust and solidarity, village solidarity. Yeah. The other thing is that the conversations in especially Mashingo and the surrounding towns would be that things that are going on in Harare do not reflect what we want. So the conversations in the countryside are different from those in Harare and Bulawayo and so on. So there are things that Zimbabwe, I think, is getting right with regard to, for example, food policy. There was a gentleman from Zimbabwe who was saying the way to solve the food crisis would be to actually do actual numbers, nakula ngapi. So
Reuben, we'll have this conversation at a later date.
We should.
On what happens elsewhere. But we thank you very much for joining us today. Time has run out. Who's coming up next?
Lena Mati, a lawyer. She's talking about democratic change and how young people's voices come in. So it's coming up to 9 a.m. Our final conversation in just a moment. We'll be back.